The Beach Boys began with an image so bright it almost became a disguise: sun, surfboards, hot rods, teenage romance, and perfect vocal harmonies drifting over the California coast. To many listeners, they sounded like summer itself. But underneath that cheerful surface was one of the most ambitious and complicated stories in American popular music. The group became famous by selling a dream of Southern California youth culture, yet their greatest achievements came when they pushed far beyond that dream. They transformed simple surf songs into studio-built pop symphonies, helped redefine what a rock album could be, and influenced generations of musicians who heard something deeper in their harmonies. Their story is not just about catchy hits. It is about family pressure, creative obsession, changing musical eras, internal conflict, tragedy, and a legacy that outgrew the beach. The band formed in Hawthorne, California, in 1961, built around the Wilson family. Brothers Brian, Dennis, and Carl Wilson joined with their cousin Mike Love and their friend Al Jardine. From the start, their sound reflected both family intimacy and teenage energy. Brian Wilson became the creative center, songwriter, arranger, producer, and musical architect. Dennis, the only actual surfer in the group, helped connect the band to the surf culture they would soon represent. Mike Love's lead vocals and lyrics often gave the songs their direct, youthful appeal, while Carl's guitar and Al's musicianship strengthened the group's foundation. Their father, Murray Wilson, managed them early on, adding both discipline and tension. This mixture of family loyalty, ambition, and control would shape the band's success, but it would also plant the seeds of later conflict. The Beach Boys did not invent rock and roll from nothing. Their sound came from several traditions blended in a new way. They drew on 1950s rock and roll, rhythm and blues, and the polished vocal groups that existed before rock became dominant. What made them distinctive was the way they fused these influences with close harmonies and lyrics about California life. Songs about surfing, cars, and romance were not just novelty topics, they became a complete atmosphere. The so-called California sound offered listeners a place to imagine themselves, young, free, sunlit, and in motion. Capitol Records recognized the appeal, and the single Surfin' Safari in 1962 launched a remarkable run. For 5 years, the band placed 16 consecutive singles in the U.S. Top 40, turning a regional fantasy into a national pop language. At first, the band's image seemed easy to understand, matching shirts, upbeat songs, and clean harmonies. But Brian Wilson was already thinking beyond the formula. As the hits arrived, he began treating the recording studio as an instrument. Instead of simply capturing the band playing live, he layered voices, instruments, and textures with increasing sophistication. This shift became clearer between Surfer Girl in 1963 and the Beach Boys today. In 1965, the music grew more orchestral, more emotional, and more carefully arranged. The lyrics also began moving inward, away from pure celebration and toward longing, insecurity, and reflection. Brian's growing ambition came at a cost. The pressure of touring, writing, producing, and meeting commercial expectations became overwhelming. Eventually, he withdrew from touring so he could focus on studio work, with Bruce Johnston stepping in on the road and later becoming an official member. This period mattered because it showed that the Beach Boys were not trapped by their early brand. Many bands of the early 1960s depended on singles, stage charisma, and repeating whatever first made them famous. Brian Wilson wanted something larger. He listened closely to harmony, arrangement, and emotional detail. He used instruments and recording techniques that were unusual for a rock band, sometimes borrowing ideas from classical music, jazz, and older pop traditions. The Beach Boys were also unusual because they remained commercially strong. During the British invasion, when groups like the Beatles transformed the global music scene, instead of being swept aside, they became part of a creative conversation. American pop was changing, British rock was changing, and Brian Wilson was determined to prove that a band known for surf songs could produce music as sophisticated as anything in the world. That ambition reached a peak with Pet Sounds, released in 1966. Today it is often described as one of the greatest and most influential albums in popular music history, but its importance comes from more than reputation. Pet Sounds treated the album as a unified emotional experience rather than just a container for hit singles. Its arrangements were rich and unusual, mixing traditional rock elements with orchestral colors, complex harmonies, and carefully shaped studio sounds. The songs explored vulnerability, doubt, love, isolation, and the ache of growing up. For a group associated with beaches and cars, this was a dramatic deepening. Brian Wilson was using pop music to express private emotional states with unusual precision. Pet Sounds helped legitimize the idea that popular music could be art, personal, carefully constructed, and worthy of serious attention. Later in 1966 came Good Vibrations, a single that pushed Brian's studio experimentation even further. Rather than being recorded in one straightforward session, it was built in sections, with different parts assembled into a dazzling whole. The result sounded futuristic, shifting moods, unexpected transitions, layered harmonies, and an almost cinematic sense of movement. It was catchy enough to become a major hit, but strange enough to suggest new possibilities for pop production. Good Vibrations proved that innovation and commercial appeal did not have to be enemies. It also raised expectations for what Brian might do next. If Pet Sounds had shown that an album could be emotionally unified and artistically serious, Good Vibrations showed that a 3.5-minute single could feel like an entire sonic journey. The next great project was Smile, planned as an even more ambitious work. But the album was shelved in 1967, and the decision became one of the most famous turning points in rock history. Smile represented the extreme edge of Brian Wilson's creative vision, but the pressure surrounding it was immense. The band was facing changing musical tastes, internal disagreements, business complications, and Brian's own struggles under the weight of expectation. After Smile collapsed, the Beach Boys launched their Brother Records imprint, but their momentum in the United States began to falter. The group that had once seemed unstoppable now entered a more uncertain era. The public image of carefree harmony remained, but behind the scenes the balance of power was shifting, and Brian gradually ceded more control to his bandmates. As Brian stepped back, Carl Wilson emerged as the band's de facto leader. Through the early and mid-1970s, Carl produced much of their recorded work and helped guide albums such as Sunflower, Surf's Up, and Holland. These records did not always match the massive commercial dominance of the band's early years, but they showed a group still searching, adapting, and creating thoughtful music. The Beach Boys moved to Reprise Records in 1970, and for a time their lineup expanded with Blondie Chaplin and Ricky Fattar of the Flames. This period is important because it complicates the idea that the band's story ended after Pet Sounds or Smile. Their later work explored more mature themes and different musical textures, revealing a band trying to survive the loss of its original creative center while still maintaining an identity. By the mid-1970s, Brian Wilson returned to a more visible production role on 15 Big Ones and The Beach Boys' Love You. But the band's internal unity was becoming increasingly fragile. Their live shows continued to attract audiences, and Capitol Hits compilations kept their classic songs in circulation, but the members were often pulling in different directions. Separate factions formed, and individual members pursued solo careers. The Beach Boys had become both a working band and a legacy machine, a group still performing under a beloved name while wrestling with personal histories, business tensions, and different ideas about what the band should be. The same family and friendship bonds that had created their harmonies also made conflicts harder to escape. Their music projected togetherness, but their real lives were often marked by distance. Tragedy became a major part of the later Beach Boys story. Dennis Wilson drowned in 1983, a devastating loss that removed one of the band's founding brothers and one of its most emotionally distinctive figures. By the late 1980s, Brian was largely estranged from the group. In 1998, Carl Wilson died of lung cancer, ending the presence of the brother who had helped stabilize the band through its difficult middle years. After Carl's death, Al Jardine left, and legal arrangements gave Mike Love the exclusive right to tour under the Beach Boys name. This created a complicated legacy. The name continued on stage, but the original family core was gone. Later reunions, including the 2012 album That's Why God Made the Radio and its world tour, briefly restored a sense of unity, but only temporarily. In the years that followed, the Beach Boys' legacy continued in multiple forms. Brian Wilson remained central to how many fans and critics understood the band's artistic importance, while Mike Love continued touring under the Beach Boys name. Al Jardine also toured separately, later with Brian's former touring band. According to the band's later history, Brian died in 2025 of respiratory arrest, and Bruce Johnston departed in 2026. By then, the group's story had stretched across more than 6 decades. Few bands have had a legacy so split between joy and sadness, simplicity and complexity. The Beach Boys sold over 100 million records worldwide and placed 37 songs in the U.S. Billboard Top 40, the most by an American band. Reached number 1, but statistics only capture part of their importance. The true impact of the Beach Boys lies in how they changed the ambitions of popular music. They helped show that pop songs could be beautifully crafted, emotionally vulnerable, and technically adventurous. Their influence reached far beyond surf rock, shaping psychedelia, power pop, progressive rock, punk, alternative, and lo-fi music. Artists heard in them different lessons: the perfection of vocal harmony, the freedom of the studio, the courage to make pop music personal, and the strange beauty that can come from tension. In 1988, the founding members were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. In 2004, Rolling Stone ranked them number 12 among the greatest artists of all time, the highest ranking for any American band. The Beach Boys began by singing about an endless summer, but their real achievement was proving that even the brightest pop music could contain depth, sadness, invention, and genius. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.